This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper, White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Beneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. John Bailey, back in the USA on White Plains Week. And a lot has happened since our last show, and we're going to give it to you right now. And Jim Beneroff will not be with us this evening, and he'll be back next week. Here are the headlines. Governor Cuomo signs the county 1% sales tax increase, ending the suspense and the anxiety. Latimer pledges to freeze county property taxes for 2 years as a result of the 1% sales tax increase. Municipalities and select school districts awarded shares of county sales taxes for next 2 years. City tax bills arrive on target with White Plains Week projections. Single-family home sales decline in Westchester in the second quarter, ending in June. Condos, co-ops up slightly. 2 to 4 family homes decline. Prices soar for condos, co-ops, 2 to 4 family homes. Municipalities, school district sales tax shares decided on population of areas, not shared equally. Campaign for Common Council readies for fall. Jim Bouton, the Yankee pitcher on the 1961, 62, 63, 64 Yankee great teams and notorious baseball author, heads to the Hall of Fame in the Eternal League. The U.S. women's soccer team repeats with second straight World Cup championship. One of the best news of the year. And right now, let's go the White Plains Week video newsreel, March of Time for July 12, 2019. And you're looking at County Executive George Latimer, just to the right, by Andrea Stewart Cousins, the state senator, and Catherine Parker. And he announced on Monday that he is signing an executive order to prohibit the county from independently selling county parkland over 2 years. He announced that the budget amendments we introduced to stop the sale of parking lots. He moved $5 million to the county's reserve fund, and he directed the departments of budget and finance that county property taxes throughout the county would be frozen for 2 years. And he also announced that of the nearly $70 million collected from the new 1% increase in the sales tax, 20% will go to local municipalities and 10% to the school districts. More on that a little later. But the projected taxes for White Plains were right on target, and because in April, we said that a $16,500 assessed home would pay about $84 more, $3,576 up from $3,482 to the city, plus $11,082 in school taxes. Total $14,658. And for the $20,475 assessed home, you'd pay $117 more and $444 up from $4,327, plus $13,760 to the schools. Now let's take a look at the typical tax bill for the $16,475 assessed home. And there you have it. our school tax for the year is going to be approximately $11,000. So we're right on target with that. This stuff is not that hard. And the interesting thing about this bill is the STAR deduction, which we're used to be having deducted for us, is not on there. It has to be sent to you by the state. So if you're wondering where that is, that's why it's not there. However, if you have had your taxes cut by the assessor after March the 1st, that should still be reflected in your tax bill, and you have to have the county send you a refund and make sure that your paperwork is from the assessor to the county to get that refund. Now, going back to something that really interested me after I attended that press conference at the McCallion building on Monday, was a hearing that held by the IDA, and it was attended by members of the SEIU 32BJ. Here they are in the hall right there, and they were there to talk to the IDA about the Hamilton Green development.
Prior to the March 29th IDA board meeting, we sent a letter listing our concerns to the IDA board members regarding this project. Here are the 4 areas. First, environmental. The project is located on a brownfield site. The developer's environmental work plan has been rejected twice by the New York State authorities for being inadequate. The New York State found that the developer's environmental work plan did not include sufficient air or ground sampling to determine potential hazards to the community. Our members, like thousands of other people, live and work near this project. These examples raise very serious questions about the developer's ability to estimate, budget, and manage a large and complex construction project, and to access the finances necessary to build a project it estimates to cost $600 million. Why would the county want to invest in a project that the developer may walk away from if it underestimates construction costs and or can't put together the financing or investors to support a project of this magnitude? Number 3, transparency in ownership. In its application to the IDA on page 3, the form of business organization was listed as an LLC that at the time of application was not yet formed and therefore not qualified to do business in New York State. And on page 4, the developer wrote, ultimately the applicant will be a joint venture between a combination of current owners as well as other prominent developers and or investment management firms. Here's our question to the IDA. Does it really make sense for the county to move ahead now with public subsidies to an LLC that is not yet formed, not registered to do business in any state, and not authorized to do business in New York? Finally, the question that Gabriella testified about the quality of jobs and community benefits. In its application, the developer provided very little information about the quality of jobs. There was no commitment to hire local residents for the construction or post-construction jobs. There was no commitment to pay the established prevailing wages or the industry standard wages for the construction or post-construction workers on the job. And the section, the Schedule D, where it had a question about training, workforce training, was left completely blank by the applicant. So the questions we have are, what kinds of jobs is the county subsidizing by providing this money to the developer? Particularly for construction, but also for post-construction, job safety and proper training is really important. Construction is dangerous work, and post-construction building service workers also need training to provide quality services to the future residents and public in the building.
So that raises a lot of questions to me. I was rather shocked at what they said, and what was even more shocking to me, there was no one from the developers of Hamilton Green there talking to the ID to support their request for $13.4 million in tax breaks from the county, which the city of White Plains will have to approve, of course. But my wondering is, what is the IDA doing? I mean, for those members not to ask some questions about that and pay attention to it, means to me the IDA is just channeling money to developers without too much forethought. And really, it also points out why Hamilton Green, if we can show the Hamilton Green rendering again, is not exactly moving along. And this has been approved for a couple of years now. And we really wonder who is really going to develop this, if they are going to bring in new partners, and who they might be. Now, moving back to the county sales tax increase, the municipalities and the school district share the awards coming from the sales tax. This is this is the list of the municipalities, and it shows the 2 years of sales tax sharing they will get. And the next slide is the slide that shows the school districts. Those are not in order either. Now, let's take a look at the municipalities first. The municipalities in the money are these top 15 cities with the amounts of sales tax they're going to get back. And it is decided based on the populations of the cities, which is intriguing. And next slide for the middle of the pack. There you go, moving that down. Those are not terrific sums that they can do too much with. And then finally, the tail end, next slide please, municipalities receiving under $500,000. And last, of course, is poor little Buchanan. And Buchanan, which is losing Indian Point, you would think they would get a lot more. There's Buchanan right on the end. Now, what would happen if the $43,132,000 were shared equally among all 38 towns? Well, each would get $1,105,948. Seems to me that's a little fairer than just doing it based on population. Would get a lot more. There's Buchanan right on the end. Now, what would happen if the $43,132,000 were shared equally among all 38 towns? Well, each would get $1,105,948. Seems to me that's a little fairer than just doing it based on population, because that way the communities could give tax cuts instead of increasing expenses. And as far as I know, there are no strings attached to this sales tax sharing, which is nice, but you gotta prevent them from adding expenses that they will not be able to pay for later. Next slide, please. School district share. This is very interesting. This is the list of the first 18 school districts and their what they're getting in sales tax over the next 2 years from the county, and also their totals, where there's not a second total for the that I could not actually locate the municipality that the district was in. But there you go. Now let some of those names sink in, like your Peekskills, your Portchesters, definitely help needed. But does Chappaqua need it? Are you kidding me? Does Tarrytown? No, Tarrytown does, all right? But I mean, you have to really wonder how obviously wealthy school districts get this aid. Just wondering if you, and next slide please. The school district shares in the bottom half, and here it really starts decreasing, like Tuckahoe, Blind Brook, a really great school district, one of the tops in the state, they get aid. Bronxville, and as you can see, the schools get aid from the sales tax sharing, and the municipalities do, and sometimes it's fixed. Now, if 37 school districts shared the $21,566,000, they would each get $582,864 in education aid if you threw out the population percentage, which means the larger school districts will get more than others, which I don't think seems quite fair. I think you spread it around. But so basically, we'll see how this plays out. And remember, these are preliminary figures issued by the county because the sales taxes are going to go up. The county sales tax is really up this year. And now with it going from 7.38 to 8.125, I believe, boom, you're going to get more. And the estimate is that this will completely clear out the deficit that the county has. Happy days are here again. We can perhaps move along, and the county is now in good shape. In fact, I believe the bond rating has already been raised by Moody's, I believe. He even announced that. So that's something to think about. What we're going to do with this aid, how we're going to spend it, and when it will be arriving. It'll probably be arriving at the end of each year, but it has to be reapproved. That's a big question for the future. Will they reapprove this? Have we ever known the sales tax to go down? Of course they will. But, you know, so those happy free spending days are back in town. Now, housing. Let's take a look at that. The figures came out the second quarter, and what it shows is that single-family homes are down in. Let me just grab my cookie. Yeah, single-family houses are down 3.9% in sales for the second quarter. Condos are up 3.6%. Cooperatives 3.8% up. 2 to 4 families 4.4% down. The number of sales year to date: single-family houses down 4.2%. Condos up a little, 1.5%. Cooperatives 2%. The median sales price is just about even on single-family houses at $705,000. The single-family house mean sale price is off 3.7%, and condos up to $481,552. That is really nice to see. 15.4% up in price on the mean sale for condos, and cooperatives also enjoying a good look. 6.1% up in price to $217,000. Now the inventory, single-family houses are up. That means you're going to have a tougher time getting a higher price, single-family home buyers. Condos, the inventory is way up 16%. So that's why the prices are going up. Cooperatives off 18.3%. People are not selling those co-ops because people are snapping them up. 2 to 4 family homes up a little. So the housing is somewhat in the doldrums. It's hard to analyze, but it is not going great guns. Now, on to the election results. The candidates for the Democratic Party had competed in a primary in June, and the incumbents for the Democratic Party won handily, squeezing out Kat Bressler, who only got 18% of the vote and lost by approximately 4,000. No, can't read that exactly, but as you can see, she lost by about 400 votes. There we are, got that right, folks. And what does that mean? It means, according to the Republican candidates, who are shown in the next slide, from the right to left, Brian Perrone, Anne Marie Encarnago, and Andrew Custodio. On the far left, Mr. Custodio said he was astounded how the White Plains Democrats just went basically all in for the nominated party candidates, and also weren't a little more concerned about the direction the city was going. He shared with me the thought they must be extremely happy the way things are going in the city, and in parenthesis, despite some of the problems that the city is facing, the slowdown in developments that are already approved, And, you know, he was just really surprised, and he promised that he would run a campaign and I haven't been able to speak to Mr. Peroni yet, but he wants to set up a forum. But it's now the time for the Republicans to really focus on some issues, do their homework, and we hope that the Democrats, who seem at this point to have a sure shot to winning their seats, based on those numbers, I mean, it was no contest, and Bresler had no comment when I asked her whether she was going to be campaigning shortly for with her Workers' Family Party nomination. So that's something to be looking for coming on up. Now, we have a couple of other things to mention here that are really important. Jim Bouton, the Yankee pitcher from the early 60s, died this week at the age of 80. There's a picture of him on the left with Clete Boyer in the background at third base in his classic pose. Bouton was known for pitching so hard to the plate in a pitching motion similar to Bob Gibson's, falling off to the right, and his hat would fall off. Very distracting to the hitter, and he was a big winner, won 21 and lost 7. He was one of the mainstays of the Yankee staff, and then he had arm trouble, and then tried to adopt a knuckler, and his fame sort of lasted beyond him because he wrote the book Ball 4, which was a real expose of baseball as it really is. And he was not appreciated for that. He also invested in Big League Chew, which he and a member of the Seattle Pilots bullpen thought of, because younger players wanted to try and chew tobacco, but it was making them sick. So they came up with the idea of shredding bubble gum into strips, and then they could drop it into their mouths like the big leaguers and prevent them from getting some of the diseases associated with tobacco chewing. But it's a tremendous product today, and Jim Bouton helped create that. Jim Bouton, a man I saw pitch in the big ballpark, old Yankee Stadium. And Eli Schoenberger died this week in White Plains. Don't have a picture of him, but he was a well-known community activist, and he was highly interested in the arts, opera. He was a great skier. There was an obituary in the New York Times announcing his death July the 10th, and I suggest you go and look at it. It's it shows you what a really concerned citizen really is. And now, final words I'd like to say are congratulating the U.S. Women's World Cup team, perhaps the event of the week, other than some of the really strange things that are going off in the political zoo in Washington, D.C. And of course, that is the World Cup win by the women's team. It was highlighted by Megan Rapinoe's penalty kick, which came off a egregious foul in the penalty box, which the French referee did not call. Meanwhile, a very courageous official, the video official, called for a replay, and he called a foul on the Netherlands, setting up Rapinoe's go-ahead goal to make it 1-0. And then, let's see, the Miss Lavelle scored the real big goal, the clincher, about 8 minutes later. And there is her shooting it right between two defenders and in. But the unsung hero of this was the great goaltender for the U.S., who kept them in the game with miraculous saves like this one. during the game. And one thing I have to say about the World Cup and how it galvanizes us about this women's team is that they are a great team because everybody was gunning for them. It's hard to win in a row when people are constantly looking for ways to beat you. The Netherlands was very physical with them in the first half, but the U.S. team did not lose their cool. They withstood the onslaughts thanks to their goalie, and then came back in the second half on an egregious mistake. And I will say this, unlike the NFL, which seems to really overlook obvious penalties which affect the outcome of title games, the one official did not, and that man has been congratulated for making that call because it's an obvious foul. And the picture of it is astounding. High leg kick right into the arm. It was not to be believed. So we move into the second half of 2019, and we have an election coming up where White Plains will decide the direction the Common Council and the city government is going to go for the next 4 years. Milagros Lacuna and Dennis Crolian will be departing the Common Council, so it'll be interesting whether the Common Council people who are elected, perhaps the Republicans, can mount a good campaign which will galvanize the electorate in White Plains. But the question is, what does bother the electorate? What does bother them? Are they paying attention? It seems to me that the only time people pay attention is when their neighborhoods are affected by developments. But they're also affected if the developments are not done in a created in a timely manner, which is White Plains' problem right now. I mentioned earlier the Hamilton Green situation, which we thought would have been really started by now, but it hasn't. And now it looks, according to the papers that they filed with the Westchester IDA, that they are looking for more partners. Once again, something that looked like, well, we're going to do it, and then, well, we need more money to do it, but apparently these things aren't questions that are asked by the Common Council. And folks, they have to start asking them. And whoever goes on to the Common Council, whoever you elect, you have to make this clear to them. And you can't just sit there and occupy chairs, okay? And just go along with what the very persuasive barristers who present these projects and the architects say about them. And you also have to really question their demographic planning. I mean, on the other hand, look at the Rochelle. They approved 11 developments, and supposedly they're all starting, and but they did the improvements in 3 months. Well, we've done away with our 28 minutes on White Plains Week. This is John Bailey saying good night for Jim Benaroff, and good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.